Hey everybody, this is Dr. William Clark, your professor for MBA 610 at the University of Maryland, and I teach the course Leading Organizations and People. And I wanted to come on and record a tutorial video on how to put together an action plan. Specifically, you're asked to do an action plan in Project 4, Step 2 for your team projects. Now, you may find in later versions of this course after the recording that you'll be asked to do it much sooner in other projects, or you may be asked to do it in other courses as you continue on the journey completing your MBA. So I wanted to provide a tutorial on how to put it together, how to think about it, whether it's for this course or for other courses. As you see on the screen, you see Project 4 here, implementing virtual teams. You're going to click on Step 2. And right on Step 2, you see here a project plan template. Once you click there, you want to go ahead and select this entire template, copy it, paste it in Excel. And this is where what you'll see. Now, let me point out a couple of things here. And I'm going back to the template for a minute that's provided on the Learning Portal at UMUC. The first thing to notice about this particular template is it's a living document, and it says so in the description at the top. A living document suggests that there can changes can be made at any time during the life cycle of this document. And for your purposes, the life cycle of this document is during the duration of this course. Again, if you are asked to do action plans for other courses, think about it in the same way, that the life cycle of this particular plan is through the duration of this course. That means that you can make changes throughout this course to this plan, and it's used as a guidepost to help you manage your time, engage with the team, etc. Now, I want to point out a couple of key things here that will help us as we go through the template. As you see in the screen, I'm just blowing it up for you. There are a series of headers at the top of the action plan that tells you what's important and what's going to be included in the action plan. The first row is add rows for tasks as needed. The second row says use this column to identify key tasks. Third row, due date, see the syllabus so that you can match it up. Enter task, target, start dates in rows below. Enter the actual start date in this column here, date completed, and use this column for notes so that you can keep track of what happened, what's due, etc. Any hangups or hiccups that may happen along the way, you keep track of that. I'm going to just briefly address steps 1 through 5 here. The idea of this template is to simplify the planning process, right? And what you want to do when you're developing your plan is to think about the top 5 key steps you need to take to accomplish the goal that you have at hand. Now, in the case of this assignment and this tutorial, you're trying to create a plan around completing your virtual team assignment. And so when you think about 5 key tasks that are steps you got to take to get from point A to point B, which is the submission of the assignment and a grade that you are pursuing in this course, what do you got to do? And so that's the way to think about it. What I do want to point out to you is that when you start to target your project or look at the project you're trying to plan for, you see here and plan for project 2 here. What are the key steps you got to do to complete project 2? Okay, and it's trying to keep you focused. And again, it has a plan for project 3 as well as project 4. Now, when you have a more complex plan, perhaps some of you use project planning software at your place of employment, you understand that every project has its own set of plans. And so that's the way this template is designed. So let's start from scratch here and let's develop a simple action plan together so that we can figure out how to think about the planning and organization of our work. Now, for the sake of this particular assignment or example, let's develop an action plan for cutting our grass. Now, I want you to think of the yellow lines as key tasks or steps that need to be accomplished, right? And I'm only going to do 3 here. So as I think about it, when it comes to cutting grass, the final step of this particular plan that I want to accomplish is after I want to cut grass, All right. So let's look at what we got going on right here. Now, there are three key steps I identified that I felt I needed to take to cut grass. Again, this is meant to be super simple, but let me just reiterate here that even though there are a certain number of lines provided for you in the template, don't feel landlocked by what you see. If necessary, expand the number or add more lines to your template so that you can capture as much detail as possible. Again, the goal is to understand the lesson that's being taught here with virtual teams. It's not just a fictitious situation. Many of you who are taking this course, you're working in virtual teams already. Many of you are overseas. Many of you are in different states, so you understand the concept. And for those of you who don't work in virtual teams intensively, this is a way to get more comfortable with working with virtual teams and how to maximize your virtual team. Now, let's go back to our example here. For this particular template, I want to cut grass. And let me just up here in line 2, project name is cutting my grass. Now, there are three key steps that I identified to getting to the end goal of cutting my grass. Number one, I need to get my supplies and prep for the process of cutting grass. Number two, I need to go ahead and cut the grass. And number three, I want to do a quality control assessment of my work. Now, let's go ahead and identify key tasks here. For the sake of this example, I'm only going to identify 3 tasks, 2 or 3 tasks per step, so that we can just go through this and see it as an example of what it takes to do this. So for task 1, under supplies and prep, I need to create a list of supplies that are needed. Task 1, task 2, and task 3. I need to create a list of supplies that are needed. Then after I create the list, I need to create a budget to purchase the supplies. And then the third thing is to purchase the supplies. Now look at what I'm doing here. Again, I am documenting what I need to accomplish to get to step 1. I'm documenting what I need to do to complete step 1. For your assignments, there may be more detail that's needed, and it's okay. Add as much detail as you need to. Now, I could add up to 6 lines in this space, but if I need 10 lines, all I got to do is insert them in Excel. So I'm going to encourage you to insert as much detail as possible. And with virtual teams, because you don't have the luxury of walking to the next door office to talk to your team member or scheduling the ad hoc meeting, it's going to be important that in the absence of scheduling these ad hoc meetings, that the plan serves as a key communication platform for each member of the team. Okay, so adding as much detail helps the communication be clear, especially when the team goes through the process of planning out what's going to be in the plan. So let's move forward here. Let's add a couple of tasks here under cutting grass. So this task 1 and task 2. All right, so under cutting grass, what I want to do here is outline the area I want to cut. All right, and then task 2 is define the pattern of my cutting. And let's add a third task here, task 3, and then cut grass according to outlined area and pattern. Okay, and step 2 is simply all about the execution of the grass cutting experience. So after I cut the grass, we got to do a quality control assessment. Want to make sure I'm satisfied with it. So let's start to list our tasks here. Let's see here. Under quality control, survey area to identify blemishes and patches. All right. Another task we want to do under quality control is trim edges. All right. Under task 3, we want to sweep up clippings. And task 4, dispose of trash, etc. Task 5, conduct final assessment. And, for those of you that cut grass, there might be more to it. But again, this is a simple action plan for cutting grass. Now, we're not done, right? I'm going to encourage you, when you're going through the planning process, don't try to plan out a perfect plan. What I encourage you to do is to go through this process and just allow you and your team to just spit out every idea that comes to mind. For example, you want to start with all the yellow steps first. What are the big high-level things we need to get done, and let everybody just say their piece? You might want to have a scribe who's going to capture all these yellow items. And after you've done all of that, remember, we're just talking about the yellow lines, go ahead and put them in sequential order. Look at mines, right? You don't buy supplies for cutting grass last. That's clearly a first step. Then second step is cutting grass. Third is doing a quality assessment. So you get all your ideas down, perfect or imperfect, in yellow. Then you put them in sequential order. What are the key steps in order from 1 until whatever, 10 or whatever, how many steps you got. What you'll notice when you put things in order is that some ideas are duplicated. So some people may say the same thing but differently. Some ideas may not make sense because it may be captured in another step, or some ideas may not be as high level as you think, and it might be a subtask to an existing step. But you'll start to filter out what needs to be removed and identify what stays. After you complete the yellow lines, you want to go ahead and complete the task lines. Okay, so right now we got to get supplies and preps. Certainly you can add more than 3 tasks here under cutting grass. Right now I only have create a supply list, create a budget, purchase supplies. For some of you who may be cutting grass for the first time, you may add under here for prep. Search YouTube videos on how to cut grass properly, or search YouTube videos on how to create patterns in the grass, or figure out do some research on the best lawnmower that I should purchase, whether it's a hand mower, whether it's a motorized lawnmower, whether it's a lawnmower you drive around in, or some other product that may be out on the market. What other supplies are needed? Doing some research on what other supplies are needed. A certain type of glove that helps you, particularly if you have an allergy. Perhaps the type of rake that's most effective for the grass that grows in your area of the country. If you identify dead patches of grass, do I need to buy seeds? Do I need to buy any replacement or synthetic grass? Again, this can go into much detail. And mind you, this is all under supplies and prep. Certainly, you can split off supplies and prep and create your own yellow lines or steps and give them their own attention. But just think about, replay that 1 or 2 minute clip here when I'm talking about what it takes to prep. Again, the context is different for everybody. You may have someone who's cutting grass for the very first time that needs to do all the research possible. You may have a more seasoned grass cutter. You may have someone who says, I'm going to create a plan for cutting grass, but I'm going to create a plan that's focused on hiring professionals to cut my grass. Therefore, I'm still going to do the research. I'm still going to do the budgeting. I want them to use my tools, or I'm going to create a budget to have them do it on a regular basis, but I want them to do it a certain type of way because I want my grass to grow. And I want a certain pattern. I want them to clean up a certain type of way. I don't want any damage or any residual clippings things on my neighbor's lawn or in the street or on my car. So there are still details to be worked out no matter how you go about cutting grass. The concept is, depending on your perspective and the lens the lens you're using to look at the work, is going to be vital for you to capture every single detail possible that can get you to where you're trying to be. Now, there's still more to do in this particular plan. Look at this here. We got our tasks, we got our steps, we got our tasks, and we got key identified tasks here that are utilized for cutting grass, but we got owners. We got to assign tasks to people. So who's going to do the supplies and the prep? Well, let's see. Let's say my wife is going to create a list of supplies, and she's going to create the budget, because that's she wants to make sure we don't overspend. And then I'm going to go ahead and go to the store and make the purchases. Under cutting grass, outline the area I want to cut. My wife may want me to do it a certain type of way. Wife and I are going to work out a pattern that we want to see in our grass. And then let's say my son is going to actually do the cutting, because he enjoys that. Okay. Number 3, quality control. Wife is going to identify blemishes and patches. She has a really good eye for that. I'm going to take on trimming the edges, because that's something I personally want to do, and I have some experience doing that. My son is going to sweep up the clippings. He's also going to dispose of the trash. Wife and I are going to do the final assessment. You can replace each of the owners I listed, my wife, my son, and I, with team member names. And again, as you get more detailed, some people are going to have many more tasks, right? And that's to be expected, especially in your virtual teams for this particular project. But make sure it's specific who's going to do what. And in some cases, you can't do certain tasks without somebody doing theirs first. Right? So I can't purchase the supplies until my wife gives me the list and the budget. But in the meantime, since I cannot physically purchase, what I can do while I'm waiting for her is to go ahead and identify the closest store we want to shop at. Perhaps we want to shop at a certain brand. Perhaps we want to shop at a big brand store, or we want to shop at a mom and pop store. And perhaps there's a mom and pop store that caters to homeowners who are cutting for the first time, but it's located 2 towns over. So doing that research, looking at the reviews of the store, perhaps calling in advance to say, hey, do you help us as new people who are new cutting grass, and do you have a bunch of supplies that could possibly meet our needs? My wife is developing lists, and have that conversation. So that research can get done, but the actual task of purchasing the supplies cannot get done without my wife. So let's take a look here. Let's look at this. So since we're trying to get this done, and let's just say that we want to finish this process by the end of June, let's say June 30th, so June 30th, 19. So this is a 1-week project. Let's get our dates here while we're waiting. So June 30th is the end date. So we start at June 23rd. My wife is going to start on June 23rd. Let's do this right here, June 23rd, to start the planning, and she's going to get the budget done on that day as well. I have to work, and I got to do some other stuff and run other errands and take care of other children, and I'm away on business trip, so I can't go to the store until the 24th, but I've already done my prep work. And then my son, my wife is going to outline the area she wants to cut. So after she makes her list, she's going to do that on the 24th. While I'm at the store, we're going to define a pattern. So it's going to take us a couple of days to talk about it, because she wants it to look a certain type of way. And then my son, he's going to get the directions from us. He's going to cut it on 6/26. No, let's do 6/27, because he has some homework he needs to do, and he needs to prepare himself to get this done. And so, mind you, let's see here. He does it on the 27th. My wife is going to survey and identify any blemishes on 6/27 here. I'm going to trim edges on 6/27 as well, because I need to get this done as soon as my son finishes up his work. Then she is going to, let's see here. My son is going to sweep up the clippings on 627. He's going to dispose of trash 627. Well, it looks like according to the schedule, we get done a whole lot earlier because it's not going to take us that long to do the final assessment. We're all going to get it done on 627. And let's add one more task here. Remember, in the directions, you can add as many tasks as you need. So I wanted to add one more. After we did our assessment, we felt we appreciated the job our son did. We're gonna do one more thing for quality control, and that is schedule the next grass cutting day. Wife and I, and we want to get it done by June 30th. And that's it. Again, this is when we expect things to start. You see column E here. This is when you expect these things to start. You have a whole lot of expectations, but the reality of when it gets done is a little different. So when do you expect this stuff to end? Well, I'm going to keep it simple. I'm expecting everything to end the same day. Okay, again, my wife's going to make her list. She's going to get it done on 6/23/19. Let me just speed up this video for you. I'm going to copy everything. This is going to be simple. I'm going to paste it. It's going to get done the same day. Now, let's add some nuance to here to the plan. What's the actual date all this stuff started? Sometimes you expect things to get started a certain day, but it really doesn't get started until days later, given circumstances that you didn't foresee. It always happens. With your virtual teams, you may have someone who gets sick. They may have a sick loved one. They may have unexpected business travel. They start to have some difficulties at home, at work, and their tasks start to fail. They drop the ball. So let's add some nuance to this. So we do want to get this done by the 30th, but let's say my wife just had some difficulties and she couldn't do the planning and the budgeting until the 24th. And it still works out for me because I got back in town from business travel. I still was able to go to the store on the 24th, but that was a busy day for us. And so we got it done on the 24th, but my wife still needed to push some other tasks back because other things that she had to get done. So she really couldn't get anything done around grass cutting until we wanted to do it by the 24th, but she really couldn't do it till 26th. She was just busy. And that means that she couldn't outline nothing until the 26th. Then that means we couldn't define our pattern until the 26th. And then my son, who had an exam to study for, couldn't really start the process until the 29th. It's a busy time. And this is intended to simulate what happens. So now all of the subsequent tasks do not get done until the 29th. I mean, you see here, we planned to actually start the stuff on the 27th, but it just didn't work out. And my wife and I, because of some other things that popped up, we didn't actually plan the next day for grass cutting, the next session for grass cutting until July 1st. But it's okay. And let's do the same thing for the date it actually got completed. Let's keep it simple. Just know here that there are cases where it can be nuanced, right? You may end on a date that is totally different, again, due to circumstances that you didn't plan for. But it's okay. Now, one of the things that I did want to point out here that I added to the plan that I have is the status. In your template, you don't see that here. But let me just help you with this. You have a line item or column here that talks about notes. Keep notes for adjustments. Or keep notes of other things you may get here from me. But this whole line item here that talks about NS, IP, and C is an effort to let you know what's happening real time. NS stands for not started. IP stands for in process. C stands for complete. Okay, at any given time of the life cycle of this document, these tasks could be at any of these three levels. Again, I'm just going to, let's start here at the bottom because, due to circumstances, none of this got started. Let's do IP here, IP here, IP here. And let's do complete for this first step here. Again, as things change, as my wife works through outlining the area she wants to cut, this IP turns into a C, because once it's complete, now me and her can go on to the next step and define the pattern for my cutting. And notice here, when I started out with this template, I thought I was going to cut the grass, but what ended up happening was my son, he offered to cut the grass. And so, again, a living document, you can make changes to it. Instead of define pattern from my cutting, define the pattern of grass cutting. And since my son's going to do it, it's his task. And again, you just want to keep notes here. Let's say my wife, she was supposed to create a list of supplies because she likes gardening, she likes doing all this stuff. Let's say my wife wanted to leave me a note. She said, I started late due to a scheduling conflict at work. My son could not cut grass here, had to push start date back due to upcoming exam prep. And again, this is an example, but think about the messages that you can leave here for your team. Think about the examples when you worked on team projects, both professionally and academically, and things happen. And sometimes people forget what happens and why the date got pushed back or why the date changed, etc. Leave the notes here. And as new notes get added, you can add new lines. You can put dates to it. So, my son, he notified me about this on 6/26. So I'm just going to add a note here that this note was documented on 6/26, and then on 6/27, he confirmed new start date to cut grass. Again, and this way you keep a history of what has changed, what has happened. Of course, in more complex project management software, you'll have opportunities to keep notes for every task, and you'll see stuff like this. But if you have not done anything like this before, this is intended to help you work better with virtual teams. It's also intended to give you some exposure to planning and organization. And I hope you find this tutorial helpful, especially as you work with people from all over the world who are attending classes at UMUC and who are engaged in this course of leading organizations of people. And to that point, if you are looking to advance your leadership, if you're looking to take on a more substantial leadership role, just know that taking on this type of work, planning, forecasting, vision casting with your team is an important part of leadership. It's an important part of what you are expected to do. So I hope that you gather some key lessons from this tutorial. Hope that you gather some key lessons from the experience with your team, and that it adds significant value to your leadership as you continue to progress. Look forward to talking with you and learning with you guys this semester. If you got questions, feel free to contact me, and we'll see you soon.